Hello YouTube, Ronan Kazi. Can't figure out the beginning. I've been doing so good and now I'm incompetent. It's Star Wars The Old Republic. So I've gotten off the planet I was on and I'm doing a mission with my Jedi Knight, which is really a Jedi Shadow, but I'm doing the Jedi Knight story even though I have the Jedi Shadow skill set. It's kind of the best of all worlds. And I'm going to do a mission. This planet I'm going to is the planet you might start off on a commando or a smuggler, Ord Mattel. I'm going to talk about paying back or holding on to things when you're slighted and what we can do about those things. So, number one, a long time ago, I think I've told you about a woman. Her name was Anna Maravellis, who wrote a book called The Weird Characteristics of Otherwise Successful People. She's renamed the book. Can't find the book anymore. I have a copy of the physical book, but she renamed the title. Maybe the title was too wordy. As we've gotten to this internet age, maybe that was too long of a title, but it was a title that I remembered nonetheless. Basically, they called Anna in when I was working for one of my previous employers. They had started an aftermarket department, and that was really disruptive. And they had never really had an aftermarket department, and so I moved over from the main company to the aftermarket, and they kind of told us that we were going to start our own company inside the company. I loved that. That was like the greatest thing in the world, and it had mixed results. So we brought some of the people over from the old business, and they didn't want to be there. So there was a mash of people, and we were fighting all the time. And there's, we have this new way to do it. And then the older folks were like, well, we used to do it this way. And then what about the old way? And it's just predictable. And she came in to do some conflict resolution. And this was one of the things that I learned about myself. We did a thing called a 270, which is similar to a 360, where they interview your colleagues, your boss, and your employees, and they give feedback on you. In a 360, they also look at your customers. And so they take this survey, they answer questions about you, and then they can expound on those questions, and then they give you that feedback. It's absolutely was fantastic, and I loved it. And it was a lot of growth for me. But out of all of this learning about conflict and, how to kind of take care of it, one of the things I've mentioned to you before, there's a thing called baby in the back seat. So you're at a stoplight and the car in front of you, the light turns green, the car doesn't move. You sit there for a second, you lightly tap your horn, nothing happens. You really lay on the horn. The person, you can see they put it in park, their parking lights, and the rear lights do that thing. They come out and you can see them reaching in the back seat. And then as you can see a little bit further, they pull their baby out and they're doing something with their baby. And that's called the baby in the back seat. You didn't know there was a baby in the back seat. You just assumed that person was just being a jerk, fell asleep, was texting, was a millennial, was an old person, was an old man, old whatever. They were whatever your culprit of everything that's bad in your life is. That's what that person was, but actually it was a mother and it was a baby, and the baby was choking, and the mother didn't go at the green light because her baby was choking.
What have you learned?
So that was one of the first things to kind of get you to realize that not everyone is, the agenda is not about you. I've talked about this to you before. In Star Wars The Old Republic, the story is about you right here. It's a great game with the story, but in real life, as you get older, when you have children, the minute you have children, the story is no longer about you. The child might not think that, but when that child gets, I'm going to say now 6, 7, 8, and they go to school, the story starts to be about them. They don't think about you as much. You're really important still. But as they get older, more and more they're preoccupied with the story in their head. What does this have to do with the payback? Exactly. We got a little bit more to go. So I'm one of those people that I'd get mad when I'm driving and people do dumb stuff. I wouldn't say road rage, but not real happy if I'm sitting there talking to my wife on the phone and they do it. I'll say something and she doesn't like that. And I read somewhere that normally when you do that, why you get mad at this is because you expect a certain behavior, like there's a certain way to do things, and you're mad at this person's not doing the things that quote unquote they're supposed to do. In Michigan, where I originally grew up, we were always taught not to drive in the left lane unless you're, going faster or passing people. So when people are in the left lane and they go slow, that's an automatic. Normally, this is when I'd ask you to like, subscribe, share, unsubscribe, resubscribe. I tell you this all the time. I'm trying to get to 500, which isn't a big ask. If I get 500 subs, YouTube will let me monetize the channel. I'm hoping to make enough money to buy laptops and then put out a laptop review once a month, because I've used the actual laptop for a month, not just giving you a review of it has this many ports, the ports go this fast, whatever. That's not helpful in a review. These reviews would say, here's the kind of case use. For example, I bought my laptop replacement and it is with the idea I wanted a low power computing situation that could run quiet with little or no fan noise. Had to be able to play games. And I was looking to create a situation where I could use a USB-C, a lightning bolt port, to have a dongle that I could run everything off of that. I have an iPad Pro M1, which can plug in that same hub, and I can use all that stuff, and I have other computers that can use that. So that was part of the criteria. Also, it had to have a touch screen. So I don't use a touch screen all the time, but I use it enough that when there's sometimes it's just better to do than with touch than a mouse. If you have an iPad, I do a lot of video editing on the iPad, and it's just great to do all my video editing on the iPad. There's times where you might want a mouse, but there's a program called LumiFusion that I use. It's great. Anyways, long story short, that's why I want you to like, subscribe, share, help me grow the content so I can pick another laptop, use it, say this is strictly a gaming laptop, and then not auction it, raffle it off to you folks. And the idea would be that would help to grow the channel, because you might come and watch reviews to get a chance to blah, blah, blah. That's the strategy that I'm not, oh no, YouTube, boop, 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 boop. Not doing legendary, so I just spawned, and I'm going to go beat some other guys and then beat him up. I wasn't paying attention. So the other thing is, so if you get road rage, it's because people aren't acting the way, quote unquote, you think they're supposed to act. So armed with those two things, that, that's a dumb thing to get mad at people because they're not running the world how you think the world should be. It's not very empathetic. Difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy, you feel sorry for someone when their parents die. Empathy is you feel your parents have died, so you can really feel for them. You can empathize with them. And there's babies in the back seat. So I've gone almost half the video to talk about paybacks. You can already see what the framework for paybacks are. What are you paying them back for? Well, Ronan, they killed my family. I don't know what to tell you about that. I don't know. Right. I don't know that situation. So that's a little too heavy. So let's back off a little bit, YouTube. Let's dial that back down from 10. Let's go back down to maybe 5. A coworker doesn't invite you to lunch with the rest of the coworkers. You just flush that right down the toilet. Like, that's not worth anything. But they keep doing it. Maybe they don't like you. Maybe you don't like them. Maybe there's not. You can ask why. You can problem solve. But really, who cares? They don't like my build. It's okay if someone doesn't like your build, but if they stop you from playing the game that you like, you should get out of that guild, clan, whatever, and get into one where people aren't so judgmental about it. These are all these things that go on. Should you pay them back? No. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, which I think means you shouldn't do it when you're passionate. You also hear about revenge. If you're going to get revenge on someone, you dig 2 ditches, one for them and one for you. That's not to say that you should just take guff from everyone. You should turn the cheek. I think that's really hard to do also. So what we're really talking about is when you get that energy from someone where they put a lot of negative energy. Now we're talking about they did something to you, whether on purpose or not on purpose, that causes you to have some type of emotional thing. So you're loaded up with this energy. Put a pin in that. You have a spouse or a friend or a significant other or someone close to you that has bad stuff happen, and then they share that with you. They're transferring that negative energy to you. Remember, I put a pin in, someone does something to you, you have that. Now someone dumps stuff on you. And let's say a third type of this energy you get, you just see something that's horrific. You're in the military and you get PTSD because you see some horrible things. That's another energy. So in all these cases, on that, whatever that is, whatever those are called, emotions, energy, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. How do I dissipate those? A really unfair thing, one of the things that has been done to you in those scenarios is someone's dumped their garbage, their baggage on you, and now you're stuck with their baggage. When I'm talking to Mrs. Ronan Kazi, there's some things I don't care about in her life, so she can dump that stuff on me a ton, and I can really dissipate it really easy. Just like right now, I just smoked Lieutenant Markovic from the Empire. I don't even think about him, bro. My wife's got problems. You got more problems. What happens, though, is that they dump stuff on you and you're not ready for it. So, like, that's tough because you got to kind of look at yourself and kind of defend yourself. You think you get naturally defensive and. So those are hard. But in general, that's what talking's for. So you're going to find someone you're going to share some of this stuff with, but you can't necessarily dump it on them 100%. You have to do some of the work to process these things. What do I mean by process them? Why did it happen? What exactly happened? How was I wrong? You can't change anyone. So it makes no sense to waste any energy on worrying about how to change someone. You can only change yourself. You can't constantly change because some things are core things that are right or wrong that might be absolute for you that you've got to stick with. There's some things that shouldn't be absolute. That's another discussion for another day. I don't think there's a lot of things that there's absolutes about. A lot of things are relative. We're in America, we look at everything as relative, and we believe in this type of philosophy that it all depends on what we think. I really tend to disagree with that. Also, somewhere in here is your free will to do things. And that's not really in there, but that's kind of part of this thing. What I'm trying to get you back, or get the point to you, get back to you, holy mackerel, easy for you to say, is that a lot of times this paying back isn't worth doing it. It might be delicious to think about it. But in reality, to expend the energy and all the focus to do that, you could do things a lot more positive. I know this sounds like a rah-rah thing, but that's just kind of how it is. That's wasted energy trying to pay people back. I always tell people there's two things. You can either be the judge or the prosecutor, but you can't be both. You can't say this person did this, this, and this, and this, this, and this, and then put judgment on them. Or someone can come up to you and say, so-and-so did this to me, and you can judge. You really can't do both, even though you want. And here's why we get the payback. Remember that dude I smoked last time? I smoked his son. So guess who they're sending after me? And that's my new Padawan.
Put down that lightsaber and step away from my Padawan.
And he's like, bro, I will cut her neck off. Look, they got her hands all tied up. She's like, bro, you don't even lift.
Release my
And he's like,
Padawan. It's your only way out.
I will cut her head off, Jedi.
Jedi accept
And Ronan Kazi
responsibility for
says, whatever I said, and my bot approved. And now here comes whoop-ass time. So the Sith tried to pay me back. And all they got was a higher body count. Thank you to Ronan Kazi out. Don't pay people back. Pay it forward. Bye.